Naruto as Kurama has offered us a unique view into a possibility that Naruto was presented with. Despite Kurama being the son of Minato and Kushina, Naruto could so easily have become this. Linking up with the ones the village considered to be garbage, he has begun to build his own criminal empire. With the influence of Gato's criminal organization, Kurama's small empire has grown. Naruto has become wealthy, powerful, and now it seems that the whole village is at his fingertips. What is there left for him now but the whole world? Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you are subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. I believe in Konoha. Konoha is where I learned my trade. It's where I learned to become a medical nin. It's where I met the love of my life. His name was Sasuke Uchiha. He was a Konoha shinobi like me. On that day 3 years ago, when Orochimaru destroyed Konoha, my Sasuke was taken from me. Taken from the village. He left. One might say of his own accord, but I know better. He's driven by his rage. He's a victim of circumstance. And now, a strange man is or already has taken his body. No doubt Sasuke will resist, but we're talking about Orochimaru. What can he do? I spoke with the Konoha Council. I brought this before the heads of our village's shinobi system. They said that there was nothing to be done. They labeled him a missing nin and put a price on his head. The village seems to be more interested in killing Sasuke. So now I come to you, the great Kurama Uzumaki. I ask of you, please, return my love to this village, and if his body is yet taken by Orochimaru, then end his misery. Sitting across from Sakura behind a desk was Kurama. He was wearing a leisurely suit, dressed for a party it seemed. He could hardly make eye contact with Sakura. There was visible disgust on his face, contempt, offense. Wiping the corner of his lip with his thumb as if he had some invisible piece of frosting from the cake there, he contemplated what he would say. "This is something I cannot do," Kurama said. Sakura's face grew more concerned. "How much? I'll do anything." Kurama for the first time made eye contact with her, though the force of his gaze made Sakura believe that Kurama might have her killed, murdered and thrown down a nearby well where she couldn't be found until one decided to drink of the tainted water. "You came to me on the day of my captain's 16th birthday to ask me to search for not just any criminal, but Orochimaru, a former member of the most prestigious group of shinobi in all of Konoha. You ask me to rescue a man who seeks no rescue, or at worst, to commit murder. No, I won't do it." Sakura sat forward. "Why not? Were you and Sasuke not once friends? Can you not do this for a friend?" Kurama took a deep breath and released an air of moral high ground. "He was never my friend. He was but another orphan. If anything, he was the bitterest of enemies to me for a time." "Then do it for me," Sakura said. Kurama looked at her. "And what are you to me?" Sakura seemed offended. "We went to the academy together for a time before you dropped out." Kurama sat forward. "Oh yes, that I remember. I remember going to the academy with you. I remember being the butt of everyone's jokes and hearing your obnoxious laugh from across the room. I remember you watching me walk alone and turning away, and now you dare come to me and try to get me act out of the kindness of my heart toward one who never considered me a friend." He sat back and kicked his feet up on the table. His feet were shod in expensive loafers made from calfskin leather. Sakura stood. "But I am your friend, Kurama." Kurama looked at her. "The only thing I was to you was the dirty trash across the room. Of course, you were popular, a pretty girl. What use could you have for someone like me? I get it, I was a troublemaker, but you do me disrespect. You expect me to so easily forget the past, forget that you can speak your glittering words and bat your eyes at me and make me forget how you treated me. If you had truly come to me as a friend, the deed would have been done the very day Sasuke left the village." Sakura stood and walked around the desk and knelt beside him. She took his hand and looked at the many rings upon it, the symbol of Kurama's great power. Taking his hand gently in hers, she would kiss it. "Please, Kurama, perhaps I wasn't a good friend to you in the past, but let me be your friend now. If you do this for me, I'll forever be in your debt. You call and I'll come running. Nothing you can ask of me will be beyond what I'm willing to give. If I have the power to give it to you, I gladly will. If ever you're in trouble, if ever you're in need, you can ask of me, and I'll happily provide." She kissed his hand again with great passion. Kurama took a deep breath. He rose to his feet. At one time, this girl had been his greatest crush, and to what bittersweet sorrow should he now serve her by finding the man who had everything he once desired? How bitter indeed, to know that, despite her words to him, they were lies. There was one thing he could ask for that she could never provide, despite how much she insisted, and that thing was her heart. He helped her stand and walked around the desk with her, holding her hand in his as if this were the start of some intricate dance the two were to perform. He walked her toward the door and stopped. "Fair. I'll do of you as you ask. I'll find your beloved and return him safely to you. And in exchange, you owe me this favor. I may never call upon it, but when I do, I expect you to deliver. But for now, consider this act a gift to you on this, my right-hand man's birthday. Come, let us enjoy the festivities." Kurama walked out of the room with her and out into the back. Behind his back were the French doors that attached to a rather large mansion. This was his reward, the reward he shared with his men. Through their hard work and the blessing that was Gato's illicit trade organization, they had bought this mansion. This mansion was the culmination of Kurama's dealings in Konoha. It had been Kurama alone who had rebuilt this very village when Orochimaru had torn it apart in an effort to seek vengeance. And now the debts were settled, the village restored. Kurama could rest in the arms of excess, a self-made man. His men also self-made, assembled together for business as any great company was. Allied with the Gato company, at first met with trepidation, was now something agreed upon by all. A branch to a bigger tree. The nutrients of the roots of this organization now provided to them. They could expand as far as they could so long as they grew leaves and put forth fruit, lest Gato prune them. And the fruit they had put forth had lined the pockets of all involved. Business was a simple concept. Provide to people what they need in exchange for what they didn't need. For most people, pieces of paper with the image of the fire daimyo held no meaning. You couldn't eat it, you couldn't drink it, you couldn't wear it unless you were skilled and desperate, and you couldn't live in it. But for men like Kurama and Gato, these pieces of paper were promise. They were potential. They were the oil that moved the machine. And that machine was purring like a happy feline currently. As they watched the men gather around to sing happy birthday to their comrade, they saw Yusuke close his eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, and blow out all 16 candles at once. "Don't shower that cake, Yusuke. We all want a slice," Josuke shouted. Yusuke looked over at his twin. "We celebrated your birthday yesterday. If you want a slice of cake, eat your own." Kurama chuckled. "What was your wish, Yusuke?" Yusuke looked up with a smile. "That the family only grow and become more successful." The crowd clapped. Kurama offered his own token clap. "Well, I hope for all of us to make your dream come true." Kurama would pour Sakura a small glass of sake and offer it to her. She would take it. Kurama would then pour one for himself. He would raise it up. "To love, to justice, and a good business." She would raise her glass as well and toast with Kurama before drinking it down. As the party drew to a close, Kurama allowed the men to do as they pleased and party as they wanted. Tomorrow, it was back to business. The reason Sakura had come to Kurama was obvious. The shinobi of Konoha could not find Sasuke. If they could have, they would have by now. But the truth was obvious to Kurama as the sky was blue. He was a member of the underground organizations. With his power, influence, and knowledge of how things worked, he could easily find Orochimaru. Orochimaru was not an island to himself. As much as any man wanted to claim he was self-made, the truth was that nobody in the world could live without the influence of others. Resources had to be procured, and Orochimaru had neither the time nor ability to procure these things on his own, so he must rely upon others. By this point, the Hidden Sound village had all but been raided by Konoha and Suna, the latter eventually switching sides to team up with Konoha after their own Kage had been found assassinated at the hands of one they trusted, to help bring them honor and glory to their village. Orochimaru had long since disappeared, leaving behind whatever facade he called a village, its purpose now having run its course. Coming through the steam and the fog, past the various store owners who shivered at his sight, Kurama made his way to Gato's office, where he would kneel before the man he now called boss. Once bitter enemies, now stalwart allies, Kurama spoke. "I request the aid of one of your mercenaries in a project of mine." "Speak, my godson. Tell me it is what you desire of me." Kurama would stand and look out the window as one of Gato's men provided him with a glass of sake. Kurama took it and sipped it conservatively as he gazed out at the docks. "I would like to request the aid of your greatest mercenary, Zabuza." Gato turned to face Kurama, not yet risen from his seat. "Oh, is Haku not enough? Haku is a great boon to us. Through his tutelage, most of my men have grown to be as powerful as I, and due to this, we're unmatched by anything in the village save its Jonin. However, I feel that even that might not be enough when pitted against the might of Orochimaru's men." "Orochimaru?" Gato questioned. "What do you want with Orochimaru?" Kurama continued to gaze out the window to the waters that separated this island village from the main portion of the Land of Fire. He shot back the rest of his sake so as not to distract him. "I received a request from an old friend of mine." "An old friend? I was unaware you had those," Gato said. Kurama cracked a bit of a smile before continuing on. She requested that I retrieve a man that she held dear, a man who had abandoned the land of his birth for the sake of vengeance, something she fears he'll never attain on this path. Gato was silent for a moment. She. Is this an old flame of yours? Kurama didn't speak. Gato smiled. Ah, unrequited love. How torturous. What did this woman offer you in return for bringing this man back? Kurama sat down his glass and turned to face Gato. She offered me anything I desire, but it was a lie. She can never give you what you truly desire. The man you're rescuing is her lover, isn't it? Kurama's expression didn't change at all. You're a man of insight. I suppose an empire like this could not be founded by anyone less than you. Gato crossed his legs as he clasped his fingers. His hair was already gray by this time, well on its way to turning the color of snow. But what will the family gain from this? This would be family resources put to a project. The family surely must see gain. So tell me, what will we get in return? Kurama looked down. This is more of a personal project. A favor. Gato took a deep breath and sighed. This isn't good business, son. I can't give up resources and see nothing in return. And nor should you. This woman may be special, but unless she offers a fine reward, it's useless to us. Kurama nodded in agreement. I understand. I'll be willing to pay for it out of my own pocket. On this day, here and now, I'd like to purchase a service from our own family on behalf of Sakura. Gato began to chuckle. And what is it you wish to buy from us then? I wish to purchase the use of our greatest mercenary, Zabuza, as well as information on where Orochimaru might be hiding. Gato sat there and looked Kurama up and down. You know, when I first met you, you couldn't have been more than 3.5 feet tall. And now you're well over 5 feet. You've grown into a strong man. You've become strong in body, also strong in mind. I must admit, since you've come under my employ, business in Konoha has never been better. The village and its resources have helped me further expand my influence. I might as well be the 6th Kage at this point. Gato stood with the aid of his cane. He stepped forward toward the window and looked out over the docks with Kurama. This has expanded, and it's in no small thanks to you, my boy. He turned to face Kurama. Consider your request granted. Take it as a gift of gratitude from me to you. Zabuza is at your disposal, as are the spies in my employ. Kurama was speechless. He knelt down once more and kissed the hand of the man who had helped him make him who he was today. Thank you, boss. Stand, my child. You're as much a boss of this organization as I. There is none other I see fit to be my right-hand man. Your business sense is impeccable. Your loyalty unshakable. You have become to me like a son, a godson to me. If one day I'm called home by the good Lord, this empire becomes yours. Your desires are my desires. Go and find this young man for the sake of your old flame, and sleep well at night knowing that you have friends in this world who would do anything for you. Thank you, my godfather. Kurama returned to Konoha and kept feelers out for Sasuke's location. It was then that a report came in. You see, Orochimaru always was and always would be the most curious and morally questionable scientist that ever existed. His need to know everything was insatiable. He was a lion of knowledge, a bear of information. He was the equivalent of an invasive species to academia, in that he moved in and seemed to destroy the ecosystem from which so many scientists relied to form their hypotheses. He had discovered so many new things about nature that were he not evil, he would have won the Nobel Peace Prize. It was tragic. For someone with such potential, he squandered it all on selfish desire, forever tainting the studies he made by attaching his dirty and bloody name to some of the greatest innovations known to mankind. But this was to be his downfall soon. Despite acting as an evolved being, standing above all others who dared to call themselves intellectual, he was too enslaved to his own nature, continuing to be the primal scientist he always was. This meant he was going to be working still, and to do his work, he needed very particular items. And to get those, he would need to buy them. Of course, there were many trying under different circumstances to buy these, but someone like Orochimaru would never purchase under conventional means. They would primarily and exclusively be through underground black markets, and these markets were owned by Kurama. Across the world, so long as someone desired something for evil or illegal purposes, they had to come to these markets. And while the world was filled with homemade evil genius, seeking to make their own nuclear weapons or chemical and biological hazards, there were few who seemed to need everything for anything. It was by searching for those who had a wide scope of purchases that Kurama pinned down a possible location in the Land of Grass. He would send out some of his men to scout. Through a little profiling that thankfully was possible due to Gato's connection to the daimyo's federal police force, they could determine who was or wasn't working with Orochimaru, and who would be likely to work with him. They seemed to start pinning down everyone who was connected to Orochimaru. So all they had to do was wait until they saw people coming to pick up the order that ironically was delivered by Gato's company itself. It seemed that if you wanted the best services discreetly, Gato was the man to turn to. Unfortunately for Orochimaru, Gato's company was currently hired to find him, and find him they did. They would report back to Kurama and tell him where Orochimaru's hidden base was. Kurama would gather his enforcers along with Haku and Zabuza. Together, they'd begin to head for Orochimaru's location. Scrolls at the ready, kunai, shuriken, and whatever other form of weapon they thought they might require, they began to move in. Outfitted in pure black, with dark flak jackets to match, they kept to the shadows. Kurama would look behind him at Haku and Zabuza. "Remember, we're here to find Sasuke. He's to be captured alive, no matter what." "And if we find Orochimaru instead?" Zabuza asked. Kurama shrugged. "Do with them as you see fit." Kurama then looked to his enforcers, particularly Butch, who, while strongest of them all, was also the most clumsy. "Listen, this base is gonna have traps, many adversaries, and is likely to have secret alarms that'll go off if we're not careful. Follow Zabuza and Haku's lead as we go in. If they point something out or issue an order, you follow that order as if it were coming straight from me." The men nodded. Kurama allowed for Zabuza and Haku to lead the way through. The two of them passed into the base, keeping an eye open for various points of caution. Zabuza would take out a can of spray paint and mark a tile on the ground, indicating a pressure plate of some point. Moving forward, they found a laser tripwire. This tripwire would set off an alarm if either of the two lasers were disturbed. To remedy this, Zabuza and Haku would get a pair of mirrors that would reflect the laser of each half of the tripwire back to its own sensor. It was tricky and required perfect synchronization and accuracy to do so, but Zabuza and Haku were two of the greatest mercenaries that money could buy, so it was nothing for them. With the way now clear, the group entered the facility. Passing deeper and deeper, they would kill off any guards who could get in their way. "Orochimaru has an elite guard he calls the Sound 4. Haku and Team A will go after them and kill them before they can become a problem. Zabuza and Team B will search for Sasuke and rescue him if possible. If Orochimaru is encountered, we're free to kill him." "And if Sasuke's body has already been taken over by Orochimaru?" Haku asked. Kurama looked back at Haku and answered this question plainly. "Instructions were given that we should terminate Sasuke if he's been taken over by Orochimaru." He looked around. "Are we clear?" The group would nod. They began to make their way toward the various areas where they thought they might find their targets. Team A moved after the Sound 4, preparing to attack. They were careful to wait for proper timing, as well as a signal given to them by Team B, as they knew that the moment they entered combat with the Sound 4, the entirety of the base would go on lockdown, and alarms would begin to blast. They needed to find Sasuke before that happened. Team B, led by Zabuza and Kurama, continued to search for Sasuke. As they did, they would come to a fork in the way. "What should we do?" Yusuke asked Kurama. Kurama looked. "Team B will split in two. I'll head Team B, and the newly formed Team C will be led by Zabuza. Team C goes that way," Kurama said, pointing toward the right corridor. "Team B will head down this way," he said, pointing left. Both groups would then split up and head in the direction they were presented. As Team B, led by Kurama and Yusuke, made their way deeper, they would discover the room to which Sasuke seemed to be sleeping. Kurama would point in, and Team B would get ready. Kurama would lift his radio to his face and speak. "Target acquired. Team A on standby," Butch said, signaling that they found the Sound 4. Kurama waited for a moment. "Team C, what's your status?" He waited more. "Team C, status." Suddenly, a voice picked up. "Be quiet, we're getting into position," said the gruff voice of Zabuza. Kurama heard the whir of air as Zabuza's blade moved through, slicing even the oxygen before him. After a moment more, Zabuza spoke. "Team C has made visual contact with Orochimaru. Awaiting orders." Kurama looked back at his team to make sure they were ready. "Be ready for a bit of a fight. Our target may be unwilling to return." He then looked back in at the sleeping Sasuke. Kurama lifted his radio to his face. "Breach in 3, 2, 1, go!" Suddenly the alarms began to wail as contact was made with the Sound 4 and Orochimaru. Kurama and his group ran in with a cloth coated in chloroform, hoping to knock Sasuke out, but the moment they entered the room to put it to Sasuke's face, his body turned to a log. A rope dart then wrapped around the hand of the one trying to perform the act on Sasuke and pulled his hand back to his face, causing the enforcer to breathe in his own chemical. The enforcer went down as the rest of the group turned around to face Sasuke. Sasuke jumped from one wall in the corner of the room to another as he threw shuriken down at the others. The group attempted to dodge these attacks, but most were unable to. Instead, they would use their kunai to knock them aside. "Sasuke," Kurama called, "you're being rescued, don't resist." Sasuke sneered and covered himself in his first stage curse mark. He would jump down at Kurama and begin pushing him back out of the room, along with the majority of his crew. They would enter a more open space. Without the area being narrow, Sasuke lost a great advantage as he could now be attacked from every side, but this was hardly the disadvantage for Sasuke as the team believed it to be. With more room to move, he would awaken his second stage curse mark and sprout wings with which he could now fly. His skin darkened, his sclera pitches black, he rose into the air like a demon born from the blood of a snake. And given the rumors that Kurama had heard about Sage transformation, this could very well be exactly that. With his incredible strength, he began to fly through the group, killing many an enforcer. "Stop!" Kurama shouted at Sasuke, trying to get him to calm himself and submit. Kurama saw the bodies of two of his trusted men and felt his blood boil. He tried to excuse Sasuke. After all, they had just attempted to chloroform him. That would be grounds for a violent response, and given how outnumbered he was, he could very well just be responding in self-defense. But despite his calling out to Sasuke to stop, he refused. If anything, he began to try even harder to kill Kurama and his group. There was little they could do in the face of one as powerful as this, but by the end of it, the only ones left standing after his attacks were Kurama himself and Yusuke. Kurama's veins were bulging. "Sasuke, that's enough! We were hired to return you to the village!" "The same village that put a hit on me?" Sasuke shouted. "We can deal with the hit. Konoha doesn't need you dead. They need you to keep their secrets. We're currently in the process of killing Orochimaru. If you bring the head of the #1 most wanted criminal back to Konoha, all past crimes will be forgiven, and you'll be hailed as a hero. Just come back with us. There's someone who loves you very much waiting for you." Sasuke scoffed at the thought of this. "Sakura Haruno, she sent you?" "Pah, I told her to keep her nose out of my business when I left." "She loves you," Kurama shouted. "You're a lucky bastard to have that." Sasuke looked down at Kurama. "She means nothing to me, not when I still have Itachi to kill. I have a mission and I'm going to fulfill it." Kurama stood there silently. "Is this really something you're willing to throw your life away for?" "What life?" Sasuke asked. "You knew me already, Kurama, when we were in Konoha. You tried to recruit me to your little Yankee group." Kurama stood there. "I promised to do a favor to a dear friend of mine, and I'm not going to break my word." Sasuke scoffed. "I'll leave you with no choice. I'm not going back. I have a dream to fulfill. I'm sure you know all about dreams. I see the shoes you're wearing. You finally made it big time, didn't you? Kurama, a true Yakuza now. How many feet did you have to kiss to get that far?" Kurama stood there silently for a moment. "I do what I need to do to be successful." "Then you should understand me completely. Our dreams are competing, Kurama. You have to fulfill your word, I have to fulfill mine. We're both self-made men who have to do what we need in order to attain the things we dream of. We're not too different, you and I. The only difference is that you're going to try and end my dream in an effort to stroke your own ego. I know you love Sakura. Take her for yourself. I don't want her." Kurama let out a sigh. "You're the one she wants, Sasuke, and even if I can't have her, I will give her you just to please her. If you come back, I promise to help you kill your brother and fulfill your duty, just so long as you help me fulfill mine." Sasuke laughed. "As if I need you to fulfill my duty. I now know how to find Itachi, and I know how to kill him. I will not return to Konoha. Go back to Sakura and tell her the truth of the matter. You failed." Kurama grit his teeth. "I'm gonna bring you back one way or another, Sasuke. I made a promise to return you to Konoha alive, but I never promised what condition you'd be in." Sasuke's grin turned to a scowl. "By all means, try it. I'll send you to hell where you belong." Sasuke rushed down at them. He clashed blades with Kurama, sending him sprawling from the very momentum of his strike. After flying past, Yusuke would throw shuriken at Sasuke, to which Sasuke had to stop flying just to counter. Yusuke rushed to his boss and helped him stand. "I know Haku trained us well, boss, but I don't know if we alone can handle someone who can take down an entire squad by himself." Kurama stood. "We can and we will. We're Rat Company. We're not going to give in. We're not going to fail." Yusuke looked around. "That's all well and good, boss, but we haven't faced someone like this before. This guy's a walking biological weapon. He's already been twisted by that Orochimaru guy, and I'll be frank, I'd rather make it home to my sweetheart in one piece, not in a box." Kurama pushed Yusuke off him. "If you're scared, then go. I'll do this myself." Yusuke's shoulders dropped. "You know I'm not going to abandon you, boss. I'm just telling you that if we keep going like this, I don't think we're going home." Kurama looked at Yusuke. "We'll be going home. Just stay close." Yusuke and Kurama stood back to back and kept their eyes on Sasuke. He circled around them in the air like a buzzard, ready to peck at a freshly deceased corpse. Perhaps that's what he was. Sasuke had already decided that they were dead, and like the crows of his brother, the bloodline that no matter how much he tried to sever would always be a part of him, he readied to swoop in for another attack. Kurama raised his blade to block it, knowing he couldn't get out of the way in time. Sasuke knocked him over Yusuke, causing them both to roll on the ground. Kurama rose to his feet and saw Sasuke going so fast he was leaving an afterimage. There appeared to be 10 Sasukes swirling around him. Kurama ready to defend when suddenly one of the Sasukes rushed in for an attack. Kurama tried to block it only to realize that this particular afterimage was a clone. It disappeared without doing anything as the real Sasuke came in from behind where Kurama couldn't defend. He attempted to stab Kurama. Yusuke jumped between the two, willing to give his life for the boss who had taken him off the streets, himself becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. The blade passed through Yusuke, piercing quite a few of his vital organs. He let out a short-lived cry as blood ejected from his mouth, coating Sasuke's face. Sasuke recoiled, pulling away. Kurama looked back and saw his friend fall to his knees. Kurama grabbed him. He ripped the sleeve from his own shirt and attempted to staunch the bleeding with it. Kurama looked with terror into the eyes of his oldest friend. Yusuke! Yusuke looked at Kurama. Boss, I'm sorry. Kurama tried to calm Yusuke a bit. Despite these actions, Yusuke had yet to prove himself in emotional turmoil. Of the two, Yusuke was the calm one. It was as if Kurama were projecting his own feelings onto Yusuke and trying to comfort himself in the second person. Yusuke spoke. And to think, I'm gonna leave that beautiful girl behind. Damn. Josuke is... Tell Josuke that he's my brother, and that my last thoughts were of him. Kurama nodded. I will. Yusuke seemed to shiver for a moment, and then his final breath exited his lungs as the glint of light left his eyes. The eyes were the windows to the soul, as they say, and now, looking into these eyes, Kurama saw nothing but vacancy. Unable to look any longer, he closed them and laid him down on the ground. Looking at Sasuke, Kurama felt as if he were going to burst. He wanted to murder Sasuke. He wanted to kill him and desecrate his remains in the most vile ways imaginable. He wished to torture him to death, but he knew that he made a promise. He would bring Sasuke back alive. But how alive was going to be up to Kurama. As his rage boiled to the surface, he felt himself being overwhelmed by the power of the Nine Tails. Seeing the pain in Kurama's heart, Naruto once again offered him his energy. He offered it to him without limits in an effort to keep him alive as he had promised years ago. Kurama would be overtaken in the power, entering his version 2 chakra cloak. He would launch at Sasuke with incredible speed. Sasuke was caught off guard by this transformation and attempted to stab Kurama, but his blade slipped off of Kurama's hide. It was thick and hard, a shell of sorts made from chakra and his own blood. Hard as steel, Sasuke could not pierce it. Instead, Sasuke was pushed on the defensive. He attempted to make distance by flying off, but Kurama gripped onto his foot before shooting tendrils of his own chakra cloak down to the ground. Those tendrils anchored them to the ground and slowly began hauling Sasuke out of the air. Sasuke went rolling. As his sword flew from his hands, he would reach for it only for Kurama to grab it instead. Kurama would turn back, and with a harmonizing voice that sounded like a demon creeping up from the pit of hell, he spoke. Are you looking for this? Kurama began to butcher Sasuke with it. Sasuke cried out and screamed in agony as Kurama systematically removed all of his limbs. Tossing the blade to the side, he proceeded to pounce on Sasuke, beating him senseless before finishing his vengeance with a blast of fire-style jutsu. This was when Kurama stopped. He could kill Sasuke, and he truly wanted to, but he reached down and applied some of his own tailed beast chakra to him. Within him, Naruto was horrified. The brutality displayed was nothing short of pure evil, and now Kurama was offering tailed beast chakra to the boy to do the worst thing that one could imagine doing in this state, keep him alive. Sasuke wasn't even capable of being recognized anymore. One could hardly tell he was human outside of the rough general shape, but as the chakra flowed through, Sasuke let out a gasp. He was unable to cry out from the pain and simply passed out once more. Kurama had achieved what he desired, the worst fate he could push on this enemy. He ruined his body to the point that he could never live comfortably again, yet he forced him to continue living. His promise to Sakura would be completed, whether she wanted it or not. That day, Orochimaru's whole group was wiped out. Orochimaru, as well as his Sound 4 and all of his servants. Josuke, upon hearing of the death of Yusuke, was heartbroken. There was hardly anything Kurama could do to offer him solace other than allowing Josuke to see the fate of the man who had killed his brother. This seemed to bring Josuke a bit of peace, a bit of comfort, but it would be a long time until his heart healed. The two were as one being in two bodies, and now one was dead. Josuke would never be whole again. But with the mission completed, they returned to Konoha. The bounties on the heads of the Sound 4, Orochimaru, and even Sasuke were claimed as Sasuke's body was taken to the hospital. It was a question if he would ever wake up again. Kurama stood outside of the hospital. It was raining, pouring. The night was there, and despite the rain, it was balmy. There was a humidity to the air as the rain that fell was already beginning to evaporate due to the remaining heat from the summer sun's previous setting. Kurama pulled with his lips a cigarette from a half-used pack as his free hand fetched a lighter. Flicking it open and rolling the wheel to spark the flint and catch flame to the escaping gases, a delicate flame was born. He shielded it from the wind as he pressed it to the tip of the cigarette. He took 2 puffs to make sure that it was going before closing the lighter, smothering its flame, and returning it to his pocket. Taking a couple drags from the cigarette, he let it a puff. A moment later, Sakura exited the hospital and came to find him. Kurama pushed from the wall he was leaning against and stepped a bit closer. "Just as promised, your lover was returned to you alive." She greeted his words with a slap to his face that sent his cigarette flying into the puddle on the road. Kurama pursed his lips and maintained his cool. "You're welcome." Sakura stood there, eyes full of tears and rage. "You're welcome? That's what you say to me? The deal was to bring Sasuke back alive, and that's what I did." "Alive? That's not alive. He's basically a brain-dead corpse kept alive by a ventilator. How could you do this to him?" "He's lucky I kept him alive this long. He's yours now. Do with him what you will." "You ruined him," Sakura shouted. "His burns. His limbs. I can't even tell it's Sasuke anymore." Kurama offered a bit of a nefarious, judgmental smile. "I thought you loved him. If you did, then what he looks like shouldn't affect that, right? Or are you so shallow?" She once again slapped Kurama. A moment passed before Kurama slapped her back. Sakura hit the ground and covered her face in shock as even larger tears began to well up in her eyes. Kurama looked down at her. "Don't be so conceited. You only loved him for the same reason others loved him, because he was rough and handsome. You have no idea who he really is. He didn't even want you, and I can't believe I was such a fool that I did. I may be a heartless demon fox, but whatever heart I did have, as dark as it may be, still deserves better than to be with someone like you. If you love him so much, then you take care of him. Use those healing powers of yours to heal his burns. If it bothers you so much to see him this way, then pull the plug, let him die. I don't care anymore." Kurama turned around and began to leave. "I finally decided what it is that I want in return for this favor," he said. "I want to never see you again." Lighting another cigarette, he began to walk out into the night, disappearing into the darkness, not to be seen anymore. That night, Sasuke was taken off life support, and he died. He was buried among his clan in Konoha's cemetery. The bounties for the Sound 4, Orochimaru, and Sasuke were used to pay the debt of Haku and Zabuza. The remaining portion of the funds split into 2 equally large sizes, with one half being divided up amongst the rest of the family, with Josuke getting Yusuke's payment he would have gotten had he survived. The remaining half was given to Gato as payment for the favor. Gato would look at the money and let out a sigh before looking out the window. He spoke. "The life of a Yakuza is never an easy one." Kurama would go back to his own office and lock himself up in the room. There, he would simply look out the window as rain fell upon his empire. This was the price of success, the price of greed. Kurama had sold his soul for the empire he built. As he looked out upon it, he knew it would continue to grow. He would make this world his own and take everything he deserved from it. That was his determination and his dream, and you'd better believe that was going to happen. Elsewhere, Gato was reading a report of sales across the lands around Kusagakure, and there he noticed that profits had taken a drastic dip. When he asked about it, he was informed that there was a new criminal organization there that had recently moved in from Ame. They were known as the Akatsuki, and it seemed as though they were also pushing goods. This was shaping up to be a full-on gang war. "Should we inform Kurama?" one of Gato's captains said. Gato shook his head. "No, the boy's suffered enough in the past few days. Let him rest." And that's where I plan to call it today. I don't know how much you can tell, but as I was making up this video's plot, I had the Godfather theme song on loop in the background while coming up with what I wanted for the video. Gold stars for anyone who caught all the Godfather references I threw in there. Wasn't like they weren't obvious. Anyway, I do plan for there to be at least one more part of this story. If you enjoyed it, be sure to tell me in the comments. Do you think the story went well? Is there anything you would have done differently? Perhaps something you'd like to see in the future? Let us know about it. I love to hear from ya. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and while you're at it, take a peek at these other videos here. I think you'll like them. Anyway, until next time, peace.